back to Tolkien and Middle-earth, we finished my 4K extended version of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, it only took us like 3 weekends.
Yeah, we watched The Return of the King, which came out in 2003, the extended version that is 4 hours and 11 minutes long.
Wow.
So it comes on two 4K discs. It doesn't fit on one, and we had to watch it in 2 parts over Friday, Saturday night because both discs were over 2 hours long.
Each one is
One
2
movie.
discs. Each one is 2. So we've watched it.
So there's a
basically
lot
a couple
in this
hours.
movie. I
2
posted
nights
on
a
Twitter that
weekend.
you can argue that there is 5. There's definitely 5, but you could argue there's 6 or more endings to this movie because there's so many endings.
Well, there's
And-
summing
And
it
I
all
think
up.
I think he could have ended it right after like they blew up the ring and then they're on the side of Mount
No,
Doom in the
but-
lava and they'd be like, I think he wanted to end it there, but then they're like, no, it has to be happier. That's too sad.
that
It's
it's
like they're all
happy.
gonna die.
It
Then he has to
tidies
write
it
more,
up.
and then they have to write more
No,
and more.
It tidies it up.
Oh man, there's so
you,
many
all
endings.
your questions are answered, which I like.
But
Questions. It's not really a happy ending.
it
No.
would be better to leave the ending. And I know it's mostly accurate from the book, except for the Saruman stuff in the Shire, because I've read those books more than once, and yeah, they're hard to get through. But there's so many endings. You could have just ended it, and then it could have been left to the interpretation of the audience.
I don't
If
know.
the filmmakers
I
want to do it, they could have ended it right with Frodo and Sam on the side of Mount Doom before you even. This movie is 20 years old.
You gotta warn
And
me
this
with spoilers.
story is okay. If you haven't seen or read The Lord of the Rings by now, and this movie's 20 years old this year,
This is
that's on you.
spoilers.
That's
No,
on you.
This is spoilers. Yeah, but I mean, in the end, it is not
The
a
book
happy.
is from the 50s.
It's not really a happy ending in the end because Frodo has been attacked, and his wound really hurts him, and so he basically has been touched by. I don't know. Basically, he leaves and goes with his uncle and goes with the elves and Gandalf. They all leave. So he leaves the Shire, the place that he loves the most, because when he comes back, he's not the same anymore. And like he says, things are not the same as they were. So it actually isn't really a happy
Okay.
ending. It's a sad ending.
Yeah, it's supposed to be sad, so they keep tacking on
I
more and more
enjoy
happier
it.
endings.
I
Okay.
like it.
This book, Return of the King, came out on October 20th, 1955. If
Okay.
you haven't read it by then, and I spoiled that for you, that's on you.
Well, there's young people
And there's-
that are just starting out that weren't born in 55. They have to get to it. They're just discovering.
It's like, you know the ending of Moby Dick before, like, because no one
Okay.
actually reads the book, but everyone knows the ending of Moby Dick. Just one of those literary classics.
Anyway-
What's the ending to Hamlet? Everyone knows.
Anyway, whatever. I liked it. I like all the ending parts. I like the summing up because basically that whole chapter of the world is over. That's what it's saying. Because
Yeah.
as we learn, there's many chapters.
The end of
what
the third
happens.
age.
It's the end of the age, and it's summing it all up,
And
and it's now the age of men, and it ends with that.
And the fourth age, it's the age
So
of man.
I don't have a problem with it. I
I-
really enjoy it.
Going back to my point about that I was talking about last weekend, all 3 of these movies and the other stuff that he wrote, this is all just history. He has taken the world that he lived in and used the history of the world and put it in this fantasy realm.
Again, you're writing your research paper on this.
No, I'm serious. It really is. All the people in it and like even events, it represents stuff from his world because J.R.R. Tolkien is a man who lived he lived through the First World War, the Great
Yes.
War, and then he lived through the Depression,
Well, I don't know.
and then he
I'm
lived through the
assuming-
Second World War,
I'm assuming.
and he lived through post-war Europe.
Okay. I'm assuming it's more reflected in like Frodo's experience of when he got home. Things were not really the same because he was a different person now when he got home to the peace of his village or where he lived. And that's the way that in the movie that Frodo felt. And I'm sure that a lot of the people who were in the wars and then came back home, it's hard to go back
He was
to what
born
it was
in
like.
1892. This
Yeah.
guy was born during the
Okay.
period of European imperial
was,
powers.
2 years older than my
When
grandmother.
royal monarchies ruled Europe still and created
Yeah.
empires, okay? And then he lived in that time period. That would have been his formative years as a child, as a
Right.
teenager, and then the First World War, which he served in
Okay.
as an officer.
Yes.
Like, this guy lived through a lot. So when I read these books, The Lord of the Rings, and all this stuff about Middle Earth, it's all history because it's the history that he lived through.
Okay.
And the elves, the Eldar, to him, they represent the royal family, the royal powers, the monarchs that
So what
ruled
you're
everything.
saying-
And as the Third Age
And the
ends,
French are the dwarves.
all the elves leave because
Okay.
all those ruling families are gone by the Second World
Okay,
War.
stop it with all that. That's so boring what you're talking about.
Okay.
Just talk about
There's-
the books. They're fun stories.
You know the
fun
Dead
movies.
Marshes
Watch
they
it.
go through?
Oh, God, yes.
The Dead Marshes, which is a battle that we see a bit of at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, the big
Yes.
battle where men and elves teamed up against Mordor
Okay,
and fought Sauron.
yes.
That's the First World War.
Maybe.
That's what he's referencing
Maybe
right
not.
there. And then it's
There was
the
also
same enemy
wars
that has come
before
back.
that.
No, this
We're
is
fighting
this is
in.
exactly what he's talking about
I
because
always-
Mordor is Germany.
I always found, or Italy.
No, it's Germany. Isengard is
that-
Italy.
That Dead Marshes thing was so creepy. I always
Yeah.
found that was very creepy. But regardless, yeah, this fella, he was 2 years
J.R.R.
older than
Tolkien.
my great grandmother, and she lived to be 103. And she talked differently than anybody I know. Just even her way she used her language, it was so strange and foreign from everybody else.
I'm telling you,
It's a different era.
I'm not wrong on this. I don't know if anyone's written a paper about it, but I should
Write
write
your
a paper on
yes,
it.
go write your
because
paper. Don't, you're boring us with this stuff.
it's all history. And does anyone else see this? I mean, the Kingdom of Gondor has got to be the British, okay?
Why?
And the people,
Why
the
can't
Rohan,
Rohan
they
be
could be
British?
the Commonwealth people, so that could include
They're the
Canada and India.
Americans.
The
That came
Americans
in
are
at
the
the last minute.
Are the Eagles that came in at the end and rescued the Hobbits. They're the Eagles. And they came in The Hobbit too and helped out.
God, okay,
And that's
stop
also
it.
First World
Stop
War
it.
references.
Shut up about this stuff. You're driving me nuts. That's
Okay.
all conjecture.
Do you have anything else you want to add to the Lord of the Rings Return of the King movie here?
They're good movies.
Because I could go on.
Watch him. Tell him to shut up about this. He's driving me nuts.
Have you guys seen the Lord of the Rings movies, read the books? Do you agree with my theory? Because I know I'm right on this. Let me know down in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Or if you agree with Christine, you don't quite believe my theory yet, let us know as well. We're going to read those out on the next show.